Well, hello everyone. So let's welcome Yona, Lunsky, psychiatrist. And so let's kick it off. So, can you tell us what the purpose is behind each card?
All right. Well, H-Card started maybe 8 years ago, and it's Ontario-wide, and we're really trying to work together. So people who have developmental disabilities, families, policymakers who work in government, healthcare providers like doctors, nurses, psychologists, everybody who's involved in healthcare, working together to understand what the health sort of needs are for people who have developmental disabilities and how we can support them better in their healthcare.
Well, that is really good to know. I understand you also a clinician scientist. Can you tell us what that involves?
Sure. So a clinician scientist has two parts to it. The clinician part is the fact that I can give clinical services. So as a psychologist, I help people. So if somebody's feeling down or depressed, I might help them to feel less depressed. I might help them if they're just needing ways to, I guess, feel better about themselves or work with their healthcare better. I might give them advice clinically. But also I'm a scientist, so I'm discovering things. So I do research on figuring out how to make healthcare, whether it's mental health care or physical health care, how to make it work better for people who have disabilities.
And what kind of stuff do you research?
So sometimes we research like big level things. One project we've been doing at H-Card is understanding for all the adults in Ontario who have developmental disabilities, what kinds of health issues they have and what kinds of problems they have in their healthcare and how we can make things better. But then we also do smaller projects. So like you were involved in some of the videos that we were developing. We thought if we need to
going to the emergency room video.
Right, so we're trying to teach.
That we did like a few years ago.
Yeah, so we thought if we really want to help people in the emergency room to know how to work with people with developmental disabilities better, we have to teach them, right?
Yes, we do.
I shouldn't be teaching them what it's like to have a disability. Somebody who has a disability could be that teacher, right? So we looked at how we could make videos with actors who we hired with developmental disabilities, like you, exactly.
And other people who are like me can do it too.
Right. So we worked on scripts and we worked with the people in the emergency department and with our actors who had disabilities, and we sort of acted out ways things sometimes go when they go wrong in the emergency department, and then ways people could do better care. And so we used those videos to educate and teach people who work in the hospitals.
And I heard that you might do the same thing with the play Wildfire.
Right, so that's a really nice example. It was an amazing play.
As an example.
Yeah, so this is an amazing play where...
And how are you going to do that exactly?
Well, I think we're still figuring out what we could do, but if you watch a play like Wildfire, which I did, and I actually brought a whole bunch of people who work in the Department of Psychiatry at University of Toronto where I work, we all came together and we said, well, let's see this play and see how we can use this as a way to teach people who are learning to be doctors or nurses what it might be like, first of all, to have a developmental disability, but also what it would be like to understand the history of being institutions and how that would feel. And all the ideas that were in the play, so like things about relationships and love, and sort of the experience of feeling traumatized or having really awful things happen to you and what that's like.
Kind of like August.
Exactly, like August is the character. When we did
that live performance in front of the students.
Right, so that was a really good example where we said if we want to teach residents, or they're finished medical school and they're getting ready to be psychiatrists in hospitals, and one of their jobs is interviewing people when they come into the emergency department and they're really distressed. And we thought, how are we going to teach them how they would interview somebody who has a developmental disability who's really distressed? And so we brought you in and we sort of developed this character of August, and you did a role play where you were actually pretending you were a patient, and they were watching how to do an interview so they could learn to do an interview well if they saw a patient who had a developmental disability.
Well, that is really good to learn that from you.
Well, actually, they're learning that from you.
Yeah, and from me. You and me.
Yeah, so it's about kind of working together to figure out ways we can teach the people who give you healthcare how to do it as well as possible.
That is so true. What inspired you to become a psychiatrist, and more specifically, the field of working with adults with developmental disabilities?
Okay, so I actually am a psychologist, which is so much like a psychiatrist, but one of the differences is that I never went to medical school, and that is important because I could not stand the sight of blood when I was in school, and the idea of having to like dissect an animal or dissect a body or whatever, I couldn't even take biology. So I got interested in psychology, which is teaching more about how people think about things and feel about things, and I also learned how to do research, so how to study why people think and feel certain ways.
Yeah.
And I figured out pretty early, I have a sister who has a developmental disability.
Oh.
And so it was always part of my life and part of my family. And I thought it was really interesting when I was reading books in psychology when I was in university that they never really talked about what it was like for people with disabilities when they were feeling down or depressed or anxious or whatever, and what they could do to feel better. And I thought, that's what I should do because I understand a bit more about, being in a family where somebody has a disability. And I think that we should be studying their health care just like we study everybody else's.
That's true.
Especially because they have, people with disabilities have more health care problems than other people. And it's not necessarily because of their disability. It could be because we're not remembering or knowing how to help them and how to teach them about health in the same way as we teach other people. And
when I was in junior high, I didn't learn that much healthcare stuff when I was in junior high. Yeah,
and that's a perfect opportunity. That's what you should. Everybody has health class.
Yes.
So you should be learning about how important it is to go to the doctors, to check out problems when they're just small problems before they become big problems, and also how to, like if you have to go to the hospital, how not to feel nervous about it, how to explain what kinds of symptoms or problems you're having, how to make sure the doctors talk to you and not just to your parents.
True.
Like that's the kind of stuff we need to be learning about, but we don't teach.
True.
If you're in a special ed class, you don't necessarily learn that stuff, right?
I never had a chance to learn that stuff in junior high.
But that's a great time for you to be learning it when you're in school.
When I was especially in school.
Yeah.
All kids and students should learn all that stuff when they first join junior high.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Or any other schools too.
Yeah, junior high, high school, even elementary school.
Part of their education.
Yep, I agree. Knowing about your body and about your health is part of what everyone should learn.
Do you find that medical profession is still lacking in their understanding the needs of people with developmental disabilities?
I'm sorry to say, but yes, sometimes I think that's the case. The good news, I think, is that I think that the new people learning to be doctors now are growing up at a time that's different than the people who were doctors who learned, say, 20 years ago. So if 20 or 30 years ago, people with developmental disabilities were living in institutions, for example, then doctors weren't even seeing them to know how to help them. But now, now everybody's in regular schools, everybody's, learning to work in the community. We've got you interviewing me on the Disability Channel.
Yeah, that's
true.
So
I think that the people who are becoming doctors and nurses now are maybe having better attitudes, more accepting attitudes. But I still think there's a lot for them to learn.
That's true. About 20, 30 years ago, they were treated very poorly and badly in institutions. Yeah. Because they were different.
Yeah.
But now, not anymore.
That's right. So I think we need to...
Now it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
To be treated badly.
Yeah.
But now that has stopped. You know what? I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, no, me too.
What is the most rewarding part of your job?
Well, that's an easy question to answer because I think things like this are the most rewarding part of my job. So being a clinician, sort of helping people one-to-one, I like that, feels good. But I think being able to be creative and think about, well, here's a problem. How are we going to solve it? Doctors don't feel like they know what to do when they're working with patients who have developmental disabilities. Nick, what do you think? Well, how can we create a scene that we can make a video out of together? Or what do you find is a problem when you go to healthcare? So talking to you, talking to families, talking to doctors, and inventing new kinds of things, starting new projects. I think that's a pretty cool part of my job.
And about this weekend, I've been talking to families about what it's like to have Down syndrome.
Right. Absolutely. So Down syndrome awareness, like last month. I have done that
for years, over the years with my mother.
Yeah.
Throughout the years of when we were doing the Down Syndrome Association, when we first started out doing that, that's when that started to happen.
Yeah, so I think
talking to families what it's like to have Down syndrome.
Right. Like, why should I be teaching families what that's like when you can be teaching what that's like, right? So, and I think families learn so much from hearing from other families, and I think that people with disabilities can learn from hearing with people who have disabilities. So when we figure out how to work together, I think it's much more powerful than if I'm doing it all by myself or you're doing it all by yourself.
True. That is so true. Aside from your very busy work, do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I like knitting. I'm not very good at it. I make a lot of scarves. I have a dog, and so I get to do a lot of dog walking, which is pretty fun. And I have boys who like hockey and music, so we get to do a lot of skating on the ice in the winter and playing music together.
What kind of music do you like?
I now like the music they like, whether I like it or not. So I listen to rap music and I listen to things maybe I didn't listen to before, but I like all kinds of music. I like jazz.
Oh, good. Me too.
Oh.
I like jazz as well.
Yeah.
I like any kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Do you have a role model growing up? What did you learn from them?
Well, I guess probably my role models were in my family. So, like, my mom taught me to speak up about things and not take no for an answer. Or if I thought something was wrong, to kind of say, that's wrong, we can do better. My sister taught me sometimes some pretty crappy things happen to her, I think. But she's pretty tough. So I think if she got made fun of or if things happened that weren't very good, she kept going. She didn't really give up on things. So I think she taught me how to not give up.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe, actually, all mothers sometimes say that to their children.
Yes.
Even. Yona, if you could be any superhero, who would you be and why?
When I was a kid, I used to watch a show called Super Friends, and they had these Wonder Twins. These are not. I don't even know if you've heard. I don't know if you know the Wonder Twins.
No,
but I grew up with the Wonder
Twins.
So they were part of Super Friends, and it was a brother and sister. They were twins, and they would say Wonder Twin powers activate, and they would like bring their fists together with their rings, and they always did cool things. So if they had to help somebody and rescue someone, they'd figure out together how to do it. So one of them would be like the pail of water, and one of them would be the eagle that carried the pail of water. So they were like sisters, brother sister team. So they could help people, but they helped people by transforming themselves into something else and working together. So maybe that would be a cool thing to do. I've heard of that
show.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't made a Wonder Twins movie yet because it was a pretty cool show.
Oh, I think they should come out with a movie. I think it would be kind of cool if they did.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like a live action or animation.
Yeah.
Film. You are not only a successful and well-respected psychologist,
thank you,
but a published author as well. What are your words of wisdom for young men and women who are becoming doctors and nurses when dealing with people with developmental disabilities?
Well, I would say if you're thinking about working in this field, whether you're interested in developmental disabilities or not, it's part of who you're going to be treating in your practice. And the most important thing is to get comfortable with it. So if you feel a little bit uncomfortable or you feel like you don't know how to work with somebody with a developmental disability or communicate with them well, spend more time with them and figure it out and ask questions. I think one problem that healthcare providers have is that they often work with people when they're really, really sick in the worst situations. And if they don't know what it's like when people aren't in the worst situations, they don't realize how much people can do, especially people with disabilities. So I think making sure you get hands-on exposure, positive experiences in your community, and knowing that people with disabilities, just like everybody else, need good health care, and they are going to tell you, they're the teachers, just like you're the teacher in our videos, how to do things right. So to work together, to partner.
Yeah, it was nice to learn from you, and you are very educational psychologist and teacher and professor.
Thank you.
And I'd like to wish you all the best.
Thank you.
In the near future. And thank you for coming on our dial with the Disability Channel and coming on to Keeping It Real with Nick. And thank you guys for watching. And you can check the show out in the channel shows on the Disability Channel website or its YouTube page. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter or any other media. Check it out. There are very cool videos. And if you want to check out Yona, do you want to mention?
Sure. So if you want to see your video, Nick, or some of the other videos and things we've developed, we have an H-Card YouTube channel. And we have a website, hcardd.ca. And I'm on Twitter, Yona Lunsky. So if you want to follow, I'll share something about this. This was awesome. Yeah, you can always find me at CamH in Toronto.
And thank you for coming on today. And thank you guys for watching again. And have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.